You love coffee, so why not turn this love into your profession? The US coffee market is approaching $30 billion and growing by about 4% every year. So there's still plenty of opportunity if you have the passion and determination to launch a coffee business this year. In this video, I'll walk through a step-by-step approach to launch a coffee business in just a few weeks without a lot of startup capital. Stay tuned to the end for a bonus tip that will guarantee that you make profit on every single sale. Let's get into it. Since coffee is a food business, there are a few things that you should do before you start. First, I'd recommend starting some kind of a limited liability corporation or other corporate structure that protects you from personal liability. For this reason, you'll probably want to get some kind of cottage food license that will permit you to make and sell food-related products. And of course, insurance is important if you're going to be selling a food product where someone might get sick or have a problem with it that could come back to you. But once you've taken steps to address some of these legal matters, you're ready to get started. I'm going to go through 7 steps called the 21 days to launch lean process. Step number 1, ideation. This is the first step to the 21-day launch lean process for any kind of business. And even if you already have an idea, you need more ideas, lots of them. The more ideas you have, the more flexible you can be with your business idea. If coming up with ideas is hard for you, enlist the help of some friends that can give you ideas and input. Also, consider using AI tools like ChatGPT, Gemini, or Copilot. First, you're going to want to start out with what kind of coffee business do you want to start? Do you want to import and source fair trade beans? Do you want to be a coffee roaster? Do you want to be a wholesaler? Do you want to do direct hospitality sales, pop-up retail? Do you want to have a food truck or food cart selling coffee? Or how about a brick and mortar retail location? There's also e-commerce or online sales by subscription. You could also do a joint venture with other businesses like a bookstore, a hair salon, auto repair, tattoo parlor, and so forth. So you could distribute coffee while people are waiting for other services. These are just a few examples, but before you start, you need to know what part of the coffee business you want to be in. So make a list and come up with ideas for all the ones that interest you and all the different ways that you could be part of that particular type of business. Finally, I always recommend doing what's called a business model canvas. I'm not going to show one in this video, but check out my video on how to build business model canvases if you've never done these before. There's also a great AI tool that can help you build a lean canvas, a form of a business model canvas, a business plan, and a lot of the customer discovery skills that we're going to be talking about in this video. But this tool is called Go Zigzag, and you can use an AI prompt to describe the business you want to launch, and it will provide for you in just a few minutes a comprehensive business plan and a lot of the tools you need to explore your idea. Step 2 is called customer development. This is really about getting to know your customers, understanding their circumstances, having empathy for their situation and their problems, and finding ways that your products and solutions and services will address what they need. Coffee comes into play in so many different ways in our lives, and every person has different reasons for why they want or need coffee. And so when you create your coffee business, it's helpful to get very, very clear on who your customer is. So here are some steps you can take in customer development. First, discovery. This often starts with conversations. Interviews can be very helpful in really understanding who your customers are and how you can help them. Focus groups can also be helpful. As you get further along, you can get a group of people together that you believe fit into your customer segment and talk to them at the same time, letting them feed off of each other and give you useful information that can help you make decisions about your business. Next is data collection. Polls and surveys. These are just different ways to get data from your customers and find out what it is that they need, what their circumstances are. It also can be really helpful if you can observe your customers and collect data as you observe them. Go to a coffee shop and watch people in their routine as they get coffee, as they pick it up and go, or maybe they stay and do other things. Learn as much as you can about the behavior of your target customer in their natural use of the product. Another key part of customer development is identifying major headache problems. The more you understand these major headache problems, the better you can tailor your message and your product to these situations. This can help you to develop a persona for each of your customer types, getting to know what they like, how they view themselves, what it is that they really aspire to, desire, or find troublesome. You can also create a journey map that shows this persona, what their life looks like. from the beginning of their day to the end of the day, when the situation comes into play that you might be able to be part of. Next is engagement. This includes marketing and messaging, but oftentimes social media is a good way to engage with potential customers, to start to build a relationship and to build a connection with these individuals. Another thing you can do as you start to bring your product to market is create a loyalty program. This allows you to collect specific contact information and data about your clients so that you can interact with them in a more personal way. Step 3 is called prototyping. You're going to want to create what's called a minimum viable product, or MVP. This can be very, very easy if you don't overthink it. This can include rebranding products that already exist or working with a co-packer to create a product that works for you. For instance, if you wanted to wholesale coffee, you might be able to buy white label coffee from an existing roaster that has nothing on the label and then put a sticker on it with your branding and test out different types of branding and images and messages as you start to sell the coffee product and start to build a reputation. If you want to be a coffee roaster, your minimum viable product might be getting a very simple roaster and starting to create some first versions of your product, getting people to try it and give you feedback about whether they like it or not, or what they would change. Once you've created this first minimum viable product that can be very, very simple, you're going to conduct iterative experiments with real customers as soon as possible. These are the kinds of things that can help you to develop what the product will look like, feel like, taste like, the flavor profile, the way you're going to describe it, your packaging, your messaging. So the more that you can iterate forward and make little experiments, testing and making small changes along the way to improve the product and improve the connection to the customer. You're also going to want to test branding, graphic designs, logos, images. You may want to create a landing page or an e-commerce site if you're planning to sell the product online. You might use something like Shopify or Amazon FBA or Gumroad as a way to stage your product so that when you alert people or tell them about it, they can go to the website and buy it. You might even consider experimenting with a subscription scenario where people subscribe to a coffee product and maybe get a bag or a few different flavors each month as part of a regular subscription. One thing that's important about prototyping is keeping your costs low. So instead of buying large pieces of equipment that are very expensive, you may want to start by borrowing equipment or renting equipment. Look for free options. Perhaps find a roaster or a business that's not using their equipment for part of the day that would give you the opportunity to experiment with your product development. Step number 4 is bootstrapping. And this is really a principle that applies to all of the process as you're getting a business started. You want to go minimal. Do things in the smallest, simplest, cheapest way possible. So anything that doesn't adversely affect your customer experience, look for ways to reduce the cost. Whether that's borrowing and renting equipment, maybe it's filling in the gaps with free services, maybe delivery or ordering or invoice is done manually while you get the process figured out. Approach a mentality of what some call half-baked perfectionist. So you want the product to have a perfect look and feel to it from a customer perspective, but it may be some of the things you're doing behind the scenes are not as perfect as long as they don't create a bad effect. You want to create sweat equity everywhere you can. There may be things you could hire others to do, but the more you can do yourself early on, that's money that you save that you can use later when you can have more effect and impact of those investments. Another great way to bootstrap is to do a pop-up tour. Farmers markets, events, fairs, temporary locations. These are great ways to test taking your product to the market and getting real feedback. If you can go to an event and set up a table where the kinds of customers you want to engage with are present and be able to even make some early sales without having to spend a lot of time or money early on in your process. Along the way, you want to be building a mailing list. This can be a great way to make sure your marketing efforts are fruitful later because everyone you interact with, if you have the opportunity to get their information and continue to have contact with them, that's going to mean less effort in actually finding prospective customers. Here's a great bootstrapping example. If you had a fully funded location where you had lots of capital to work with, you might find a great location, sign a long-term lease, do an expensive build-out, buy high-quality espresso machines and automatic drip coffee makers, heavy-duty coffee grinders, a POS system, a thoughtfully and well-designed website and social media presence, supplies, water, milk, water purifier, toasters, ovens, all these different things that you would do if you had a lot of capital to work with. But what if you were going to bootstrap this business? Instead of a location, you might start with a card table at a local farmer's market. You might use an inexpensive AeroPress to give an espresso-like drink its quality without having to have an expensive espresso maker. You might use traditional coffee makers and grinders initially. Instead of expensive software and POS systems, you might use things like Google Sheets and Google Docs. You might also use landing pages that use free templates like card.co, or even just use social media for engagement. You might use lower cost supplies that still have a good quality look to them. And you might use a cooler with ice rather than a refrigeration, or a small hot plate instead of a stove. So these are just some examples of the ways you might bootstrap as you're starting a business. Even if you ultimately want to go to a full coffee shop, you might start with some of these things to start to build your audience and perfect your product before you have to make that heavy investment in equipment and locations. Step number 5. Monetization. You have to find the right price so that customers are going to feel good about buying your product. You want to look for ways to come up with value-based pricing. This is finding the right price, what the market will bear, and ultimately you want to try to position your product in some way as a premium product, because by doing that you can get higher margins and you have more likelihood that your brand is going to be viewed as valuable because of its higher price point. At the same time, your business may be focused on opportunistic situations where people are willing to pay more even though the product quality is not as high as it might be if they went to a premium coffee shop. Likewise, a lower price in a situation where you know you can have a lot of volume if the price is right, you may still be able to make a good bit of money even though your profit margins are lower, but you're making that up by high volume sales. Ultimately, you're going to want to do some research about the size of the market. You want to identify the TAM, SAM, and SOM, the total available market, the serviceable addressable market, and the serviceable obtainable market. These sound like complex terms, but really what they mean is how much money is being spent by people on your particular product in your particular area. The more you understand this, the better your understanding is of how much you can charge and how much you're likely to make, and ensure there's going to be enough opportunity for your business to be a success. Some ways to do this include visiting competitors, doing research on expected traffic in a particular area, seeing how many people live in a particular area. So doing some of this early research can help you to ensure there's enough business in the area you're targeting to be successful. You're going to want to come up with a simple deal. This can include product bundles, packaging, positioning, sizes, prices. You want it to be very clear what it is you're selling and what it will take for someone to get your product. So if you're planning to sell more than one size of coffee, you may want to determine whether you want to have small, medium, large, or maybe just 2 options. Or maybe at first you only have one option and at one price point. Maybe bundle some kind of a grab and go muffin or something that increases value at the same price someone might expect to pay just for the cup of coffee. At this stage, you need to compute your profit margin. You need to understand your cost of goods sold, your overhead, and the profit that you can achieve based on your price. This way you make sure that you're making profit with every sale. And at the end of the video, I'll talk about some ways that you can really make sure that you're capturing these profits. If you're going to put together a formal business plan, you'll want to do some modeling about what sales are going to be over an extended period of time, maybe a year or 3 years, so that you can really see how the business can grow. To do this, it's helpful to actually project your sales on a per unit basis, starting with a spreadsheet identifying how many cups of coffee you think you can sell day 1, day 2, or go by week 1 or week 2, and so on. You can use tools to actually model this out that make it really easy, especially if you're not a numbers person and you don't really like working with Google Sheets and other types of spreadsheets. A good example of this is an AI tool called FlowCog that allows you to drag and drop your particular types of revenues and expenses, and the system will automatically map out your pricing. A little bit more involved applications called LivePlan that allows you to actually do the entire financial model for your business in very simple terms, even if you don't have a strong financial background. There's some easy ways to bootstrap when it comes to your monetization model. You can do research based on Google searches, along with your own legwork, going to businesses and seeing what is happening with other competitors in your area. As you get more capital to work with and your business grows, you might hire an expert consultant or a service to conduct research in your specific region and area of focus. Step number 6, systems. When you first get started, if you're bootstrapping and you're working with a minimum viable product, maybe just doing some pop-up locations, your systems can be very simple. But as you go further along, you're going to want to develop and enhance these systems so that you're not spending a lot of time on the operations of the business, focused more on the product and the customer. Some examples of systems you'll need to think about will be a POS purchase application of some sort. If you're selling direct to customers, you need to have some way to collect money from them in addition to cash, because a lot of times people don't carry cash anymore. So you may want to use an app like Square or Stripe, or you may even start with just Venmo to keep it simple. A cost of goods sold or expense tracker. This can be as simple as a spreadsheet or even a piece of paper where you write down all of your expenses. Anything you can do to keep track and know how much you're spending so that as you're starting to generate revenue, you make sure that you're able to do so profitably. Next, you'll need an order process. This can be as simple as a slip of paper, or it may just be a checklist where you put tick marks every time someone makes an order. If you're running a coffee table and you're the only person working and you just have regular coffee and decaffeinated coffee, it's very simple. So you're going to take the order, you're going to fill the order, take the money, and maybe just check off how many you've sold. But if you have multiple people in the process, you're going to need to have a way to capture that order and communicate it to everybody that's involved in the process. It could be as simple as a slip of paper like a diner, or it could be an automated system where you're just putting the information in, selecting the products as you go, and then it comes up on someone else's device showing them what needs to be fulfilled in the order. You'll also want to start to develop standard operating procedures. This can be a very, very simple bulleted list of steps that you take for every part of your process. Everything from your preparation process, a checklist of everything you need to have with you, your setup process, your order taking process, delivery, follow-up. Making sure that you have determined ahead of time exactly how you're going to do these and following that same process every time is going to ensure that you're being efficient, and it's also most importantly going to ensure that the customer has a consistent experience every time they work with you. Another helpful system is a CRM system, a customer relationship management system. This is any way that you can capture contact information, communicate with your customers, perhaps in sequences, maybe a loyalty program, anything you do to keep track of customer information that you can use to improve their experience and your operation. Early on, a CRM system can be as simple as a sheet of paper where you get people to write down their name and email address to join your email list. Or it could be the system that you use to take orders includes getting some personal information so they can join your loyalty program. As soon as you start to add people to your process besides yourself, you're going to need some kind of human resource management system. This can be very simple as well. It can be on paper, it can be done on a Google Doc, but you need to be able to capture employee information. You need a way to handle scheduling, payroll, performance reviews, and so on. So again, this can be very simple at first, but over time, you may want to look at apps and platforms that are set up to make this process easier through automation and technology. Some ways you can bootstrap with this would be free apps, perhaps one that's separate for each of the functions I mentioned. Things like Venmo, Google Sheets, Google Docs, pen and paper systems. But over time, you may enhance this process using integrated or specialized apps that are designed specifically for your type of business. Step number 7, talented people. As soon as your business grows beyond yourself, you really need to think carefully about who you're going to hire, and you're going to want to be sure that they're delivering the same value to your customers that you would. To help with this, it's really useful to write down what you consider to be the values of your business. What kind of culture do you want to have? What's the personality of the people that you want to have interacting with your customers? Documenting these kinds of things can be really helpful as you're starting to interview people and think about who you want to bring into the business. You also want to start to set performance expectations as you hire people, and maybe even start from the beginning with a review process where you go over with them how they're performing and what your expectations are on a regular basis. Bootstrapping in this area can include hiring sparingly, making sure you're only making hires when you need to. Consider part-time help or even contractors when possible. It's even better if you can start with trusted friends and family members that you know will treat your customers well and that are capable of doing the work. When you bring on some of these early trusted helpers, it's a good time to start documenting your values and your processes. And this can be done as simply as a Google Doc if you're bootstrapping. As you move further along, you may want to create a written organization chart, role descriptions, perhaps with pay ranges, even a periodic review process, and look for ways to hire based on recommendations rather than just putting out open ads that may give you varied results in terms of quality of talent. So there are the 7 steps for launching a coffee business using the 21 days to launch lean process. Be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for more videos about successfully launching and growing a coffee business, as well as other types of businesses. If you're really serious about launching a coffee business, check out the description below for a link to a free download for a 21 days to launch checklist for any kind of coffee business. Before I go, here's a bonus tip for making profit on every single sale you make. Whether you're selling coffee by the cup, by the bag, or in larger quantities, the profit on each unit sale may seem meager, but getting into the habit of capturing your profit from your very first sale is a key to success. You should predetermine what your profit margin is on every single sale. And from that very first sale on day one, start to capture that profit and set it aside. Even if you only sell 1 cup of coffee and your profit is projected to be 20 cents, capture that 20 cents. Put it in an envelope. Maybe even set up a separate bank account for your profits as you go. But every day, as soon as your revenues come in, capture your predetermined profit and set it aside. Then go about paying the rest of your expenses and reinvesting in the business. This will pay off big over time because you're ensured that you're getting your profit no matter what else happens in your business. If you'd like to learn more about capturing your profit on every single sale, check out my video, Stop Paying Yourself Last. Keep going.